Well, let me begin by saying that this sounds like real progress, the ceasing of the war in the Black Sea. But what we have seen in the lead up to this is that the relationship between both the delegations have been quite delicate, and with Russia asking for the sanctions to be lifted and Ukraine accusing Moscow of twisting the deal, how much do you think is going to actually be implemented, and what? Right.
Well, I think that the deal will go through. Remember, it's only a partial deal. The key issue is what happens on the ground. And in the Black Sea, you remember, as you earlier said, there already has been an agreement, and then it fell apart. So the United States is back, putting that agreement back together. Mr. Putin wants some sanctions to be lifted first. My guess is we'll probably do some of that, and this deal will go through, just like the agreement not to hit each other's infrastructure and energy facilities. But that's not where the war is really going to be decided. It is on the ground. The Russians have pushed the Ukrainians pretty much out of the Kursk region, and Mr. Putin has shown no indication that he's going to stop his people from fighting on the ground. As you recall, the original American Ukrainian statement called on Russia for a 30-day truce. There were no partial agreements. So, yes, there's progress. That's certainly to be welcomed, but it is far from what the Americans, my country, and Ukraine had originally announced in their statement.
Mr. Zakhem, that kind of brings me where I wanted to, go next in terms of your thoughts on when is the earliest you feel land and assets will be on the discussion table, because that's something that Trump mentioned about over a week ago, that's what he's hoping to discuss, but that's nowhere on the cards at least yet.
Well, no, and the real question is Putin going to be straight with Trump? It's not at all clear that Putin is going to be straight with him. I think Putin, the longtime KGB person who is still acting like a KGB person, probably thinks he can outsmart Trump. That's a very dangerous game, because if Mr. Trump thinks somebody's trying to outsmart him, he will hit back very, very hard.
So when you say outsmart him, you mean agree and then do something else on the back? If you can elaborate on what you mean?
Well, either agree and go back on it, or more likely continue to stall. Putin wants to stall for as long as he can to gain back as much territory as he can, to make it virtually impossible for Ukraine to demand anything like the status quo ante in 2014. Now, it's already pretty much improbable that he'll get what he wants, that is to say, Zelensky. But this makes it just much, much harder, the longer it goes on the ground, for Ukraine to have any kind of position of strength in the negotiation. What's been agreed to now has essentially been Ukraine giving in to the United States and Russia agreeing because it's getting something as well. But when you talk about territory, that can only come if Ukraine gives way, and the issue is how much way does it have to give?
Right, Mr. Zakhem, and as you early mentioned that that Putin has been a little shaky on his resolve, and well, Zelensky has anticipated that the deals have fallen apart quite immediately in the past as well, and now that Zelensky has requested the US administration to foresee in case the ceasefire reaches an impasse again. So how is the United States slated to take that into implementation as well?
Well, look, Zelensky wants us to help bail him out. One thing, by the way, we've done is, as you recall, we have once again begun to supply Zelensky and Ukraine with both intelligence and arms. So that strengthens his hand somewhat. The British and the French have said that they will put peacekeepers on the ground if there's a ceasefire. That strengthens Zelensky's hand somewhat. And finally, the deal that the United States will get a piece of the rare earth and minerals that can be exploited in Ukraine means that Americans will be on the ground. So there are already certain guarantees. Whether that is sufficient for Zelensky is questionable, and what I think is certainly clear is that Putin simply is not ready, at this stage at least, to sit down and negotiate about boundaries simply because his people are advancing. Maybe not as quickly as he would like, but they are advancing. And I think he will continue to stall, and Trump will continue to put the pressure on. And the question then is, how long can Putin stall before Trump loses his temper and says, I'm sick and tired of your delays when I have asked you to finally sit down and negotiate seriously about what goes on the ground?
Another question that comes, of course, from that is even if he does stall further, what options does the US really have? They'll have to get them to the negotiating table, and that only seems, but we'll need to discuss that another time. Dr. Zakhem, thank you so much for joining us here on the show. This is World DNA, and always a pleasure having you here with us.